Taiwan, a country I'm proud to say I'm from. In my career as a media entrepreneur, I've spoken to movers and shakers here who make global headlines. But what I'm most excited about are the up-and-coming forces of my generation. They're young, they're creative, they dare to defy the status quo. Follow me as I meet emerging leaders of Taiwan who lift us, who inspire us, who are changing the world, starting in Taiwan. This is Game Changers with Emily Waiwu. Now today, a really special guest. We talked to a former child actor turned pianist who got into video game music production, and he has since produced award-winning scores for video games, TV shows, and films. He made music for video games like Final Fantasy and Assassin's Creed. And now he's teamed up with heavyweights in the tech industry to use technology to democratize music creation and distribution. Now let's meet our game changer today. His name is IVAN LINN, and he's making classical music more accessible for all of us. Hey Ivan, good to have you here.
Hi Emily.
Thank you so much for joining. Good!
Thank you.
Ivan, so good to have you here.
Thank you for having me.
I'm really happy to catch you because you're not full-time in Taipei. You fly back and forth between Taipei and just kind of doing cool things in the world.
Traveling quite a lot, but this is where you get experiences and try different food, make new friends and different cultures.
Yeah. So I didn't realize this until, we met face to face, and I realized I've seen you when you were a kid. In the 90s, in 1993, you were the child star in a really popular TV show here called Bao Qingtian,
Yeah, exactly.
Justice Bao.
Exactly. That was quite early in career, right? When I was like 5.
Yeah. What is it like to be a child star in Taiwan?
I started to act when I was really young.
Yeah.
It was a really great experience because, when I was 5, I didn't know a lot of things, but I was experiencing all about productions and all about meeting new people and working with actors, actresses. So that was a really fun experience.
Yeah, a very unique childhood. But then when you were a teenager, when you were 12, you took up piano. But at the time, it was only classical music, right? So I heard that you only listened to classic music growing up. I
know. I've gone through a quite period of time where it's pretty much like close up. Like, I only listened to classical music at Bach, Beethoven, Mozart. And it's because when I was young, my dad used to purchase, we call it cassette, right? It's been quite a while.
Yeah, the cassette tapes.
Yeah, tapes. So he would play classical music. That was my first impression about, so actually classical music has quite a wide range of dynamics. Like it's sometimes really loud, sometimes really soft. Right. But it really triggered me. So I started to pick up classical music as the first step. And for quite a number of years, I didn't get to experience music outside classical world until when I was around like 17 and 18.
Yeah, I can totally relate to that. So also my introduction to classical music was also my father.
Right.
I remember playing the radio as a child, Taiwanese radio, FM, whether it was Mendo pop or English songs on ICRT. My dad would sneak into the room, open the door, sneak into the room and change the channel to the classical music channel.
Right, exactly.
So when you were 17, kind of the switch happened, right? In some of your past interview, you credit that period as being really critical because you were in Boston and you joined a rock band, and that's when you realized that young people really love to listen to video game music.
So before Boston, when I was 17, the first place that I moved into was Berlin, actually.
Okay.
So it's such an experimental city.
I think we need a map for all the places you've been. This is
what
a fun life.
It's been a little crazy. So I lived in Berlin and started to listen to music outside classical, right? So pop, a little bit of electronic music at the time, which was quite early for me, and a little of rock music and jazz. So having been living in Germany for quite a while, I moved to Boston, and that was because I really wanted to try something that's different, because growing up watching movies from Hollywood, you sort of get the sense like in the States, impossible things can happen, right? So I wanted to experience that for myself. So I actually moved into Boston, which is more of an academic and quite a place. Yeah. So one day I got this call from Warner Music, asking me, so Ivan, now that you're in Boston, do you know that there's a school called Berklee School of Music?
Wonderful school.
A lot of artists coming from there, from jazz, pop music. And there was this group, rock band, formed by their alumni where it focuses on video gaming music performances, and they were looking for keyboardists. So asked me if I wanted to join.
Okay.
So I remember that my first experience going to a gaming concert live, that was 2012 in Boston, Distant World's Final Fantasy live concert. And it was at Boston Symphony Hall. That was my first time witnessing this presentation where it's a symphony orchestra on the stage, there's a choir. Everything was so classical, but the content isn't necessarily classical. It's like video gaming, programming with a gigantic and larger screen above the orchestra, playing the footage of gameplay and the cinematic footage from the game. So the experience was really immersive, and it was actually a quite lengthy concert. It was like around 3 hours. But it didn't
just Final Fantasy music.
Yeah, Final Fantasy music.
It's wonderful.
The engagement and interaction between the stage and the audience was really tight, and there's a lot of memories going on, and you see big guys crying in the audience, and it's a really immersive live experience featuring music that in that room people would laugh.
Yeah, well, Final Fantasy music, I listen to it while doing work actually.
Exactly.
It's soothing, but it's so energetic, so I guess, so eventually from there on you decided video gaming music was going to be your focus for a little while.
Right, because I was like, why don't I give it a try? I have the knowledge and foundation of classical music, and I wanted to try something that's new.
Yeah.
And actually a lot of my friends would say, Ivan, why would you try something that's so uncertain and not necessarily established? And I was like, well, look at this. We've all been to video gaming concerts, and people loved it, and it's usually sold out with at least 3,000 people in the room. And if you look at the population, for this generation, they play video games. When they grow up, they would form a family. They would likely allow their kids playing video games. So when you see the population and the growth, actually it's a good business.
Yeah, and you were totally onto something. So last year, the global gaming industry, it pulled $180 billion in revenue, right, in 2021. And the film industry was only 3/4 of that. And the music industry, it was just 1/7 of that. I mean, clearly you had a good idea of what's to come.
Yeah, we never expected a pandemic to happen, but when COVID was there, you wouldn't be able to go into theaters to watch movies, but you can actually stay home to play video games.
Right.
So the market size has been tripled, and I think even more than that.
So after that performance with Final Fantasy, you later became the Chief Conductor for Assassin's Creed World Tour.
Exactly.
And also Legend of Zelda.
Yes.
And so on. Okay, just super cool. We're gonna take a little break, and next I wanna ask you about kind of your passion for music and then what you're doing next.
Sounds great, thank you.
Hey, welcome back to Game Changers with Emily Waiwu. We're sitting here today with Ivan Linn, whose career started as a child star that we were also familiar with in Taiwan. And since then, he's launched a really successful career in classical music and then making classical music accessible for all of us through video gaming. Next up, we're going to talk about his love for music and what he's doing now to break down the barrier even more between music and us. Ivan, you're working in Web3 right now, which is something totally new. But I mean, throughout your entire career, it's entertainment, it's technology, and you're trying to pull us in closer to what you love. So before we get to technology, tell us about what you love. What kind of art moves you?
When I was in Europe and living in Germany, I think one of the privileges is that you are so close to everywhere. So we would carry our passports with us and go to London for breakfast and come back on the same day, or sometimes during the weekend we go down to Paris and return 2 days later. So we were surrounded by this really full environment of art and culture. So it became part of the nature for my day-to-day life. But you know, I started to get into modern art, contemporary art, and it became some of my most favorite places and artworks to see. Like I remember when Chiharu Shioda was in Taipei. This was this gigantic immersive experience where she would use a thread to connect everything together. And I don't think it tells a story with such an amazing presentation where you would be touched by the motive and the story behind. Yeah. So I feel that when there's a story behind contemporary art, and now we're moving to digital art, it's really different because the quality, the context itself, it's really critical. But what triggers me, it really is the story behind and the background and what happened behind the scenes. That's really interesting to me.
You've lived in so many places: Taipei, Singapore, Germany, Switzerland, Boston, San Francisco.
Exactly.
And you know, going between museums and concert halls and schools. And what have you noticed about, I mean, across all cultures and languages, what have you noticed about how we're changing the way we consume art and music?
I always thought it's important for us to learn history because we will understand what's been happening during the past. And I love making progress. So I don't think from the history that we learn, if there is any way that we'll be able to make things innovative and futuristic, or executing it and to make future plans to be reality, this is something that I really love doing. I'm so obsessed about combining old and modern, elegant and experimental, controversial. And I don't really know how to explain, but I think first of all, it looks cool and entertaining. Like, you know, when Tesla was there, when iPhone was there for the first few years, it's a cool trend that, oh, I carry an iPhone. Hey, I drive a Tesla. It's like a trend, right? So moving forward, it's not about the context itself. It really is about what's next and what we're able to make progress. And I think that's important for us to improve for the entire society.
All these technology help us to tell stories in a better way. And which brings me to what you're doing now, which is using technology to, first of all, be able to tell the music story a bit more, but also to help the community around you. So I wanted to ask you a bit about that, which is quite cool, because your new project, you're trying to break down the barrier between music creators and audience members. Yeah, tell me about that.
Right, so when you look at the history of technology, it's been solving a lot of problems. From hardware to software, now artificial intelligence, machine learning, and moving on to a blockchain. Actually, we're always on the edge of doing something innovative. So I think the most two critical problems in the music industry that need to be solved would be distribution and discovery. So that's the primary reason that I founded and started music project WAVV, spelled as WAVV instead of WAVE. And I got asked like why it's WAVV, because it's simple, because the name was created when I was in shower. And I was like, yeah, it sounds cool, and it's kind of Web3 vibe, a little bit of a blockchain thing involved in, and it's cool, it's futuristic, so why not? But the most important thing is that in music industry, because I've been in this place for really quite a while, all the way from music productions, music performances, and also music distribution, music business. After like going through all the process from 0 to 100, like from music creating process to be a mastering sitting in front of you, I really do think in terms of the way music is traveling between creators and consumers, it's a little too old-fashioned. Like, you know, around 100 years ago, we've been through the period of time when when you're in New York, you need to make a phone call to Boston. There's like an operator in between, right? They would try to wire you like, hey, now you're connected to Boston, so you can go. So music industry is like that. There's a lot of middlemen, a lot of third party trying to claim to help musicians and artists.
For example, right, so there's a creator, and then you have an agent, but also a manager, then sells your work to
distributors, publishers, and royalties.
And then platforms.
Platforms and concert promoters, booking managers, and like everyone in the middle of creators and consumers. It should have been solving problems and trying to help musicians and music creators. But when you talk to musicians, or when you talk to musician friends, pretty much most of them would tell that they are, first of all, financially struggling, and they're
only taking back about what, 10% of the
10% to 15% of the entire revenue due to the current infrastructure. And also they spend hours and hours writing music, but their work wouldn't be exposed. That's another problem. So we sort of came down to the
because a lot of gatekeepers.
Exactly.
By providing this platform, you can get rid of the middlemen and increase the revenue for the creators, right? From 10 to say 100, 85, 70?
100 would be ideal, but I don't think it's going to happen that way. So we're going to do this step by step, right? Increasing from 10%, 15% to 27% to 47% to 65%, then that would be making a great progress. But you know, when it's increased from 10% to 35%, actually the entire music industry globally is going to be turned upside down already. What I notice is that you also notice that pop music sounds pretty much the same all the time, right? It's because there's this equation where music can be produced and commercialized in the way that they know what's to be successful and what's going to be independent. I don't think that
there's a sound, right? The producer, they go, this is like a gold award-winning sound.
Yeah, exactly. And I think it becomes the way to kill creativity for actually billions of artists out there. If you talk to friends, if you go to restaurants, or if you take a shower singing in the bathroom, you actually find quite amazing that creativity is everywhere. But during the past, you can only work with distributors to upload or publish your music. Like 2023, you cannot publish your music directly onto Spotify without going through third party. So you know, the musicians are really good at writing great music and being creative, but not necessarily doing music business and distribution. Technological service is much needed for that part.
But what about discovery? How does technology make it easier for us to discover new songs we like, right?
So when you listen to music nowadays, you listen to the same playlist. You listen to pretty much the same group of artists and the same groups of songs. Actually, we spend so much time on the same content. So I would think going forward in terms of the music distribution and also exposure, it would be a great idea to provide additional choices for users and for consumers. Did you notice when you listen to music, usually it won't provide you a cross-genre music consuming experience. When you choose pop, it's always pop. When you choose jazz, it's always jazz.
It's things I like that genre, so I stay there.
Yeah, exactly. It's because the genre that we know of nowadays, it's pretty much broken down into several categories, right? Like classical, like pop, rock. Now we have lo-fi, and video gaming isn't even a category yet. It's not officially acknowledged yet. So actually, when you look at the way music is being produced, there is a much better way that involving AI and also sound frequency, sound wave that you can actually analyze that will be able to provide cross-genre experience. Like when you play video games, there's a lot of like rock music being played, right? When you watch films, there's a lot of jazz music being played. But is it cinematic music or is it jazz music? It's really hard to tell based on the current categories. So, you know, AI is going to play the big role in it as well.
Yeah, but I imagine also the mainstream, kind of what you call old school, traditional system, they must hate this, right? Because you're trying to disrupt it all. What kind of pushback are you getting from them?
Unfortunately, human nature isn't necessarily born to be making progress. Like we feel safe, then we stay there. We don't necessarily optimize, or we don't necessarily make progress. But I'm so fortunate to be part of the team and in this group where all of us are really innovative and want to try something new, because I do think if you want to make some changes, it's good that you can break a little rules, trying something that's different, and try something that's a little controversial. Like, well, look at electric vehicle or smartphone, like, or look at the appearance of internet.
You come from very traditional crafts, acting in front of a TV, and then classical music. But then now you're saying, you know what, we're gonna break it all. You know, let's do things a little bit differently so that we can all benefit from that, right?
Right, exactly. I think we need the change, not just because it's good for the artists, but it's also good for the community, for all of us. So it's actually opening the gate for artists to really have the stage to be exposed, to find their echo chambers, to really find their target audience and their franchise. And it's only making the community industry a better place.
Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you so much, Emily.
Yeah, and for talking to us through kind of you making video games. That's a really good gateway, entryway into classical music, which is through Final Fantasy, Assassin's Creed, things like that. But then now, with the work you're trying to do through technology. This is so cool, and I wish you the best of luck, and I can't wait to go on your platform and kind of see what kind of new creators we're going to discover.
Thank you, Emily.
Now, one more thing before we go is something we ask everybody, is that out of your accomplishments so far, you've gone around the world. You know, how much of what you've done so far, how much was it given to you versus how much did you have to fight for?
Well, I don't think it's a learning process, right? Because I wanted to be unique, but in the meantime, I also understand that in entrepreneurship and also in the business, it's necessary to find a way and solution where it's benefiting the mass market. So there's always this balance there that you have to fight for, but sometimes you have to make some sacrifice. But I don't think if you have a good heart and also wanting to making progress for the place we live in, then if it's for the good, then all these are necessary.
Have a good heart. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Emily.
And this is Ivan. And wherever you are in the world, if you're also a musician, if you're also working in technology, trying to change the music scene, I want you to get in touch with this game changer. Now, as for me, I'm Emily Waiwu. You can find me on socials. You're watching TaiwanPlus. Find us on all social media. Follow and subscribe. We'll see you next time.